This is the beginning of my Mark II engine rebuild. As you can see, it is a 3.8 litre, and this is, as I said, out of my Mark II. You can hear it and see the fact that there is a liquid dripping off of it. It's PB Blaster. The reason I've done this is because I'm going to replace all of the studs and obviously take this engine apart, and it's a good idea to give it a damn good soaking of PB Blaster. There is a number of nuts and bolts on this thing, and I would rather they came out than me having a problem with them. This is on studs on both sides, on the exhaust and on the inlet side. I want to make sure that they come out nice and easy. I will be ordering new ones from, I believe it's XK's Unlimited, and I shall also be ordering the brass nuts and all new chrome nuts for the valve covers, or cam covers if you prefer, and also the cylinder head bolts and studs. Not going to be cheap, as no Jaguar parts are. But this is the engine now on a harbour freight stand, and it was a little tricky trying to get it all lined up. In the end, we didn't use these top arms, we just put the bolts straight through, and again, fortunately we couldn't get the right length bolts, so we had to pack it with washers, which is okay. I must admit I was concerned with the weight of this engine, with not the frame itself holding it, but the bolts. So hopefully that'll be okay. I'm going to be gentle when I remove the head, so that I don't bang things around too much, and then I'll have the fun, once I've got the head off, of spinning the engine and taking off the oil pan and seeing what kind of state we're in there. I do note that I do have a little bit of corrosion here. It's not too bad, probably passable, but we'll see. And also a little bit there. No, that's actually fine there. The biggest thing will be the waterways once I take the head off and I can see underneath the head and what they're like. I think they'll probably be okay on the block because that's cast iron and it doesn't tend to corrode as easily as the aluminum or aluminium head. We will see, but I have an engineering shop lined up should I need to get some welding done and then resurfaced. Also, with my straight edge, I will be checking the flatness of the block and of the cylinder head. Okay, I will show another video a little later once I've started to remove things. In fact, I may even video me removing it just for fun. Here is going to be the next little thing we have to do. That is to remove all of these studs. The bottom ones I've already taken out using this wonderful little beast. Is a standard stud extractor. Works extremely well. The disadvantage is that if I try and put it on here, let me demonstrate that for you. Put it on here, it needs to spin around, and as you can see, it hits the cylinder head. You've got to have it really flat up against the head here, and consequently it can't turn. So you're either going to end up breaking the stud, or damaging the head, and damaging the head is not an acceptable option. So consequently, you have to use another method. That method is the two-nut method. And yes, I am two nuts. And I have two nuts, believe it or not. You basically, let me show you here how it's done. Basically, hate that word. This is what you do. You get two nuts, and first of all, you have to try and get the nut to go on there. You can tell I pre-tested this, can't you? Ha ha ha. Alright, doesn't want to go on that one. Let's try the next one over. Okay, here we go. Oh, gosh. Yes, they are pretty tough. I really should have done this ahead of time. However, I didn't, so it just shows I'm human. So, yeah, get your two nuts, screw one nut on, get it way down inside, And in case you're forgetting or wondering why it all looks damp, it's PB Blaster all over this engine. I have absolutely soaked this engine in it, and it still needs a damn good clean, but this is just so that I can get all these nuts out. Now what you've got to make sure is you get that nut a long way on, because this nut must get a full bite, otherwise it's going to cause a problem. Now I've got the end of the bolt coming through, as you can see. Now what you do is you lock the two nuts together. So one in one direction, one in the other, until it locks. How about that? I caught it. There we go. Okay, now that's locked. Now what you do is, on the back nut, you turn it, and as you can see, the stud turns. And then what I like to do, and not everybody does this, is now that I've got it to turn, is I break loose the two nuts. Why? Well, because it's a darn sight easier to do it while it's holding in there. Now you just unscrew the two nuts with your fingers. Okay, and on this last one it's actually pulling the stud out, which is fine. And then you just unscrew it from the stud. You just unscrew it. Of course this one decided to bite me, so I'm going to have to hold that with pliers while I take this nut off, because I need it to do this one, this one, this one, blah, 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 blah. And the same applies to the other side, and this also applies to any stud that you need to get out. Doesn't matter the size, as long as you get two nuts that work. Okay, that's it for the moment on this particular section. As I continue with the head, the engine, and everything else, I will video it. One other thing I like to do whilst I'm removing these studs, and I could have showed it earlier, but I'll show it now before I just take these last two out, is to make my life easier and to stop taking chunks of skin out. You just slide the wrench on here, rest it up against the other stud, so that then when you want to free these nuts like that, there's less chance of you shredding your fingers like I did. And then take this final nut off, and you will undoubtedly need to do this a few times, because this nut will stick on there and you won't be able to undo it with just your fingers. So then grab a pair of pliers, crack the nut, and in theory it will just unscrew. That's the theory. One other thing I'm going to do with this head, which I don't know if I've mentioned, is I'm going to put the gasket on here, and then I'm going to draw through the gasket onto the head. I'm also going to do the same on the manifold, the intake manifold, and I'm going to do it on the exhaust as well, and then bore out the area that mates with the gasket. And then, because I'm going to do it on the gasket onto the manifold, there will be a smooth transition through here so that the flow goes through nice and easy. Now, on another video that I watched, and I think it was Ant Ansty, or it may have been Ed China, they suggest that inflow, in other words inlet, you want to leave it a little rough, not terribly rough, but a little rough, so that when the air fuel mixture goes in, it gets swirled around and mixed up better. And then on the exhaust side, you want it as smooth as you can get it, so it gets rid of the gases as quickly as possible and as smooth as possible. This will actually increase the power. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be a huge increase, but it could be, you know, a 1% increase, and okay, hey, 1%'s 1%. A plus is a plus. Yeah, do I need to do it? No, this is a very powerful engine. Am I going to do it? Yeah, because for one thing, it's fun. All right, that's it for the moment on this particular section. Don't do like I do like I say, and stop skinning your knuckles. Okay, bye. One addition I'd like to make to previous comments is regarding removing these studs. On the exhaust side, the nuts that are used are brass, obviously for the expansion and contraction. Using those to pull out the studs is not a good idea. Reason being, they're brass, it's softer, and basically you'll end up stripping them. It's quite simple to do. So what I suggest is you take the ones from the intake side, or go buy a couple of new ones whilst you're doing all of this work. Go down to your local Ace hardware store, or True Value, whichever it is. Go to their beautiful nuts and bolts section and get some nice new nuts. Just a couple to remove these studs. Another point to note when doing the exhaust side, if you're using this style of stud extractor, and unfortunately it's the only one I have, when you're on this lower stud, it swings around and it hits the top stud and prevents you from using this extractor. What I did is I used it until it hit the top stud, so at least now all of these are at least cracked. Unfortunately not quite finger loose, but I'm getting there. So just wanted to let you know that that is another issue you will meet with this type of extractor, although it does work brilliantly. Okay, if you got this far, you've probably already figured it out, but these nuts are 1/2 inch AF, you know, real proper sizes, not like that metric shit. Here it is with all the studs removed. This is the intake side. Not looking too bad, I must admit. Obviously I will clean that up a lot better. I may even get it resurfaced. I'll have to see how bad it is once I get my straight edge on it. And this is the exhaust side. Again, not looking too bad. I'm probably going to replace these plugs and also these down here and on the other side and on the back of the engine. And those of you that are rebuilding your engines, don't forget this one. This one has a habit of leaking because everything gathers here, and whilst you have the engine out, it is so much simpler to deal with it and get that beast done. Not sure if I'll take these out. I probably will. I like to take everything apart and make sure it's okay, even if I just take it apart and put new washers on. And of course I will be replacing all of these core plugs. Not sure yet whether I will paint the block, then replace the core plugs and leave them silver, or replace the core plugs and paint everything afterwards. I think I'll paint everything afterwards purely because it'll give it an extra ceiling. That's my theory, and I'm probably wrong, but that's what I think. Okay, so next time I will be taking off the valve covers, the timing cover, the California emissions tube crap, and getting that head off. Alright, now we move on to the next phase, which is to take the timing covers, the timing cover off, and also the camshaft covers. So let's see. Certainly think the BB blaster helped. Okay. One's stuck there. Alright. I'm not going to bore you guys watching me take every one of these nuts off, but once they're off I'll show you what's underneath. Okay, having finished removing all the nuts and washers from the cam covers, I will now need to remove them. However, I also needed to remove this little beastie here, and this is a breather, crank breather. When you take this off, behind it you will find there is a filter. Obviously there are gaskets too, which are going to be absolute crap, but this filter is essential. This, if it is clogged, can continue to help you blow smoke. Now that, as you can see, mine is clear, well 99% clear anyway, but I will clean it before I put it back in. But yeah, you've got to make sure that this beastie is clear, otherwise it can cause a lot of problems for you. Alright, the next thing to do is to try and take the cam cover off. Well, this is a first attempt during this, and it does not want to shift. It might need a little persuasion, and I have my persuader. Okay, that happens sometimes, they get a little stuck, and of course now getting it off with all these studs is never easy, because they just don't want to let go. They love it so much, and they do tend to get put on with a little persuasion. Okay, and I'm struggling away here. Let's see. It's getting there. I know you're all excited. Better contain yourselves. Keep the tissues handy. It's almost there. Come on, baby. Come on. I'm trying to help you here. Gosh, this really is fighting me all the way. I have worked on many an XK engine, and whilst they do struggle a little, they're never normally this tight. And of course this one has to be super tight because I'm filming it. Come on, you can do this. I can't, but you can. Come on. Oh, well. I nearly gave up then. Let's just see if we can tap it up a little. Gotta be so careful, this being aluminium. Success. All right. Oh, wow, look at that. I hope I'm not counting my chickens, but that doesn't look too bad. Apart from this one here, seems to have some goop on it. I'm not sure what that is. Nothing in the valve cover. And look at those, they're remarkably clean inside. Now this engine hasn't been apart, as far as I'm aware, since 1964, but I can't really believe that. It lived in Saudi Arabia for a number of years. So my biggest concern is that sand's got in here, so I'm going to need to inspect these camshafts and bearings very carefully. Okay, well, I'm not going to bore you again, as I say, with taking things apart, but just going to take the other side off now, and we'll see how that goes. Alright, here we move on now. As it can be seen, I've got the cam covers off. I'm just beginning to decide what to do next, and these gaskets have definitely got to come off. They seem to be somewhat brittle, so that's always a good thing to do anyway. Not that you'd ever reuse these type of gaskets unless you're a moron. Now, they're coming off nicely. And one thing I've got to say, guys, is, you know, I often say things about my wife, and she tolerates me and my addiction to cars and to Jaguars in particular. So if you've got a wife like that, God's sake, look after her. It's worth a ton of gold. It's in the evening now, probably around 7ish. I'm in my garage playing with my toys. I said, you know, we'll have dinner in a minute. And we probably won't have it till much later. She's doing what she wants to do, I'm doing what I want to do, but you gotta, you know, happy wife, happy life, the old saying goes. And this, as you can see, gasket is somewhat manky. There's a good old word, manky. I wonder if politically correct you're allowed to say manky. Quite frankly, I don't give a shit. I'll say what I want to say, I'll use the words I want to use, and if it upsets you, talk to me about it. Then we can agree to disagree, or whatever. So, sorry, getting in my soapbox there. Don't like being told what words I can use, what words I can't, particularly because of the colour of my skin. Yes, look, it's white. Alright, next guess is to get this timing cover off. Do note there are studs here, and it's easier usually to get the head off and then take this timing cover off. I might try and do it a different way and get those studs out, purely because I'd like to take the timing cover off and have a look. And looking in here, look at this, it's grey gungy shit. That needs a bloody good clean up in there. Doesn't mean the engine's bad, but certainly not a clean engine internally. Alright, we'll move on from this. And gaskets have all got to come off and be replaced. And I have the complete gasket set. And this is a stage that I love, tearing things apart. And of course it's very satisfying putting it back together when everything is new and clean, and this block will be painted in a lovely shiny black. The oil pan will be cleaned and coated in a clear lacquer. The cylinder head will be painted with the correct colour paint. That's the correct colour that you see now, but of course that will come off with all the work I've got to do. Alright.